Russia's radioactive Teca River. Contaminated. Russia's Teca River is one of the most polluted places on Earth. The river, which lies east of the southern Ural Mountains, is located in the province of Chelyabinsk. In the late 1940s, a nuclear weapons facility began dumping nuclear waste into the Teca, which became contaminated. Nuclear waste is radioactive, meaning that it gives off radiation, particles, or rays of energy. When released into the environment, radiation is extremely dangerous to all living things. The amount of nuclear contamination in and around the Teca River is far greater than that created by the Chernobyl nuclear disaster. In 1986, a reactor at a nuclear power plant in Chernobyl, Ukraine, exploded. It spread radioactive fallout or particles over tens of thousands of square miles. The Chernobyl disaster received enormous publicity, but contamination of the Teca was a closely guarded secret. Toxic waste threatens 100 million people. Nuclear waste is one of the many forms of hazardous or toxic waste. Others include pesticides, chemicals, and elements such as lead, arsenic, and mercury. When not disposed of properly, toxic waste poisons air, water, and land. Exposure to toxic waste increases the likelihood of developing cancer or other serious diseases or conditions. Toxic waste also causes many forms of disability, which often prevent people from living normal and productive lives. Nuclear waste is especially dangerous because it gives off radiation that makes people ill and that also can cause severe birth defects. Once released into the environment, radiation remains dangerous for more than 100,000 years. A recent assessment of more than 2,000 polluted sites found health risks to more than 100 million people. The Teca region turns toxic. The Mayak chemical combine was built in the 1940s to produce nuclear weapons. In the early years of its operation, Mayak dumped 2.6 billion cubic feet of radioactive waste into the Teca River. Scientists estimate that the resulting radiation equals the amount released by a small atomic bomb. When the Teca flooded in 1951, its waters spilled into the riverbanks, contaminating the soil. The Teca River region experienced an earlier radiation exposure in 1957. A cooling system failure caused the temperature of the radioactive waste in one of the Mayak storage tanks to rise. The tank exploded with a force equal to that of 75 tons of dynamite. Most of the radiation remained near the complex. However, some of it formed a 5-mile wide radioactive cloud that traveled across about 600 miles of Chelyabinsk province. The accident exposed more than 250,000 people to radiation. This caused a significant increase in the number of people hospitalized during the following 2 years. The radiation also contaminated soil, making it dangerous to grow crops. Meat and dairy products were affected as well. More exposure. After years of dumping into the Teca, Mayak built a facility to store nuclear waste underground in steel and concrete tanks. While Mayak was building a storage facility, the complex dumped nuclear waste into nearby Lake Karachay. Years later, that would prove to be a disastrous decision. In 1965 and 1966, unusually dry weather caused some of the water in Lake Karachay to evaporate, which exposed radioactive sediment on the lake bed. In 1967, strong winds picked up the radioactive dry sediment and spread it over an area about the size of Maryland. The radiation affected an estimated 400,000 people. Living with toxic waste. The radiation in Chelyabinsk has taken a heavy toll on those who live in the area. Evacuation of people in the area was one way to protect them from radiation. However, there were delays before people living near the Teca were evacuated. By that time, many had been exposed to harmful doses of radiation. Among the people who were not evacuated were those living in the town of Musliomova. The townspeople were not aware of the radiation and its effects, and they continued to drink the river water and use it for irrigation. They raised crops on the polluted land and allowed their animals to graze there. Plants absorbed radiation from the water and the soil. Plants absorbed radiation from the water and the soil. When animals and humans ate the contaminated plants, the harmful radiation affected them as well. Today at Musliomova, many people are suffering from illnesses caused by radiation. rates of cancer including leukemia and skin cancers are 2 to 4 times as high as normal. 1/3 of babies are born with defects or physical disorders. Cleaning up the river. Early efforts to clean up the Teca River had little effect. Although MIAC stopped dumping its radioactive waste, the damage had already been done. Soil and water were contaminated by radiation. Recently, efforts were made to remove radioactive sludge from the riverbanks in the area. The polluted soils were placed in a remote area and covered with clean soil. The effort to clean up the Teca River and its environment is a challenging one. However, each step taken will help make the environment safer for all living things. The lessons learned will also help groups find ways to improve environments damaged by radioactive pollution.